Thank you. It's great to be here. First of all, thank you all for being here and showing up and getting the word out about UTPB athletics. Obviously, with the other coaches and players that you talked to today, it's a special time in Odessa, a special time here at UTPB and moving forward. So excited to be here. This university, this athletic department, volleyball team just has such a great opportunity in front of us. When you look at what the Lone Star Conference has done, just in the recent history, if you're in the top half, you're nationally ranked. If you're in the top two or three, you're competing for a national championship, and who doesn't want to do that? So we're here. We got a lot of work to do, but I love that light that's at the end of the tunnel. I love that light, and that's what we're working towards.
What positives can you take away from what's currently here and what changes might you bring?
Well, I mean, first of all, we got a full roster. Leaving Northeastern and just it all depends graduation and right. I mean, there's a lot of things out of your control, but we just had 5 girls in the gym where I was coming from, and we just had 6-on-6 this morning, a great competition this morning in our first practice. So the first thing is actually being able to put full team work in and systems, and you can't do that unless you got the members on your team, the members in the gym to do that. So that's what's exciting, is that the rollout of this, maybe the new direction that we're going to head, can happen right away, which is exciting. I think what I might bring, don't tell Todd this, but I'm not that important, quite honestly. Right, it's just establishing the foundation. It's establishing maybe the new environment that we're going to work in. But a lot of what happens in terms of getting to the goals that we have happen behind the scenes. Right, happen when nobody's watching. Happens during the summer when we legally can't coach them. So really, I think the biggest thing is just instilling that discipline that we will have day in and day out. Will maybe be the most important thing that I bring to this program.
You're saying that you want to create an environment. If you have your way and it goes all to plan, what kind of environment is that they're working on?
Yeah, it's fast paced, it's high energy. I told them on the first day, the team, when I met them, I said, this will absolutely be the greatest experience of your life as long as you're not sleepwalking. I told them, you will absolutely hate me if you're sleepwalking. So everybody was awake this morning, and it was a heck of a first practice.
Can you run through your background a little bit, kind of your coaching history, and what's led you to now ending up in Midland, Odessa?
Absolutely. Well, I want to. I'd be quite inaccurate if I didn't start off by thanking my parents. You're born into whatever family you are, right? So you either get lucky or you don't. I got quite fortunate, and I just happened to grow up in a volleyball household, right? So mom played college volleyball at the University of Georgia. My dad used to do international officiating before 3 boys ruined his life. He now, coaches high school, and my mom coached middle school and club, right? And so it's just, a lot of boys grow up watching baseball, basketball, football with their dads. I grew up watching volleyball, and that's just what it was. And when they were playing pickup volleyball in the YMCA on Friday nights, right? Like, there was no babysitter, so it was the corner of the gym was my babysitter. And so that was my upbringing, was always being in the gym, always being around the sport. I had goals and dreams and aspirations of going to a certain university out of high school, and they didn't accept me, which is whatever. It's totally cool. So I ended up going to Ball State, which is a great school for journalism, telecommunications. In my previous life, I was actually on that side of the camera before I got into coaching. And Ball State was a great school to do that. And so I did that. While I was there, I was quite fortunate to manage for the women's team at Ball State. And the head coach at the time was a gentleman by the name of Steve Shondell, who is AVCA Hall of Fame. He's won over 1,100 matches in his career. He's lost less than 100. So he is couldn't have been more blessed to be able to learn from him, pick his brain, and get my start that way. Fortunately, one of the assistants at the time that I was a manager for those 3 years became the head coach at UNC Greensboro in North Carolina. I still had my last year to finish up at Ball State, but he calls me, asks me to interview. I love the South, so I was like, let's go. And it was a job, right? You know, when you're 22 leaving college, both of those boxes definitely were checked for me. So 2 great years there. Had an awesome opportunity to go to Coastal Carolina and Myrtle Beach. Had 4 unbelievable years there, coaching both indoor and beach. And then had a great opportunity the last 3 years to be up in Boston at a top 50 academic institution in the heart of Boston, Massachusetts, and living that life. So Texas is new and different. West Texas is even more new and different. But they've got great sweet tea and great Southern hospitality, so I'm at home. Absolutely. You know, I've been so blessed to work for wildly different people, backgrounds, personalities. You know, the gentleman when I was a manager, Steve, the head coach, was the nicest, right? I mean, you know, the most hardened criminal, he'd find the silver lining in that person, right? And so, you know, when you're overly competitive like I am, sometimes you need that guy that's like, look, it's not all about the W's and the L's, although that's what gets the headlines. It's deeper than that, right? And so then my first coaching job, you know, working for a guy who worked for him was similar, but now I've got more responsibilities. Now I'm out in convention centers recruiting, which is maybe where I made my name the most in the last 10 years. And then I go and work for this, you know, Hungarian guy at Coastal Carolina. And straight up, when I first met him, didn't understand a word he said, but I knew that I liked how his head was spinning. And so I'm like, hey, you know, as long as you can do this with your arms and this with your hands, I really don't need to understand the words coming out of your mouth, I guess. And, you know, so worked for him for 4 years and learned a lot from him about how to motivate, how to push, how to be the bad guy in a good way, right? But like if the worst opponent that you play in any given week is wearing a different colored jersey from you, you're in deep trouble. Right? If your worst opponent is like your coach or maybe your teammates in practice, now you've gotten somewhere. So, right. So I definitely learned a lot from him. You know, and then these last 3 years, the way too many L's and not enough W's, unfortunately. But you know, the one thing being in Boston, right, it teaches you opportunity. I mean, Boston, Massachusetts is jack full of opportunity, both professionally and personally, and so that really kind of taught me to open up the blinders a little bit and maybe get a bigger picture of different situations, which led me to, you know, this job, right? When I first started, I would have been like, oh, I'm a D1 coach, right? I'm not a D2 coach. But then you look at the opportunities, right? For me to be a head coach at the D1 level with the opportunity and a path to go win a national championship, right? That will happen, but that will take time. The opportunity to come here and fight and compete and win a national championship here was too good to pass up. So I called the moving truck, scheduled that, and we started packing right away. Shout out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I know the area. There we go.
But Coach, you were talking about your family, you come from a volleyball family. What does it mean to your family, like mom, dad, brothers, and everything like that, to see you finally become a head coach, especially like, you know, several years as an assistant?
Yeah, you know, I think they're extremely proud of me for sure. They know that this has been my dream since the second I accepted that first job. You know, I was the crazy kid who actually wanted to be a golf broadcaster on TV growing up. It was motivating. But anyways, then you figure out, okay, well, there's got to be certain things in life that you know that you can tackle and move up, and you know there just was a better path. So I went down the coaching route. Straight up, I don't think my mom was a huge fan of it at first, right? Because this is a job where you win and it's great, and you lose and you get fired, right? And I know, oh, it's about grades and graduating kids. Yes, it is. Okay, but you don't see a whole lot of low GPAs getting your coach fired, right? But you see bad win-loss percentages. And so I think my mom, from that perspective, is like, you know, CJ, right? There's easier lives out there than coaching, But look, she played SEC volleyball. You know, she was literally the reason I'm standing here today. So She's very proud. My dad, for sure, supports me all the way. You know, my two brothers could not be any more different than me. They're polar opposites, other than we all look alike, I suppose. But they're happy for me too. You know, they're both still in Indiana, and I'm, that middle child syndrome who ran away and, has been carving my own path. So they're very proud of me. I can't wait to get them down here and show them a couple dubs in Odessa.
I want to touch on family a little bit more. With your mom being SEC volleyball, I know SEC volleyball is kind of top of the top of the top. So does your mom still kind of play a role in your coaching, and what is that role?
But it's funny. Anytime we talk, and I don't call her as much as I should, that's on me. And so, Mom, if you're watching this, I do apologize. But every conversation we have somehow centers around volleyball, right? Even if we're just catching up on like family or what'd you have for dinner last night, we come back to volleyball, And so, my parents like to think that I'm the best coach in the family. That's not true. My dad has the highest winning percentage in Indiana history for boys volleyball. My mom won, I want to say, 6 straight city championships at one time. So I'm third in line when it comes to successful volleyball coaches, but right, just because I do it at the college level doesn't really mean anything. But yeah, it's interesting how every conversation, every time we see each other, right, it's volleyball's related in some form or fashion. Interestingly enough, the first recruiting trip I'm taking is to Indianapolis. So I'm going to stay at my parents' house, drive one of their cars, you know what I mean? And so, even when I go visit, I'm still working in some capacity.
How would you compare volleyball to basketball in Indiana? Because I know,
Oh, yeah. So Indiana is definitely a basketball state, right? And if you've seen Hoosiers, right, like the basketball goal on the side of the barn with like a dirt court because the kids played so much that they just wore the grass out. It's a real thing, right? It's a very real thing. And growing up, me and my next door neighbor, we'd get up at 6 a.m. in the summers. The second the sun would come above the horizon, we'd start playing hoops, and you don't stop until the sun goes down. And even then, both of our parents, we're a next door neighbor, both of our parents installed lights, like floodlights on the back of the house so we could continue playing hoops, past sundown. So basketball is a religion in Indiana, but, volleyball is up there too. When you think of the greatest states for like high school and club volleyball, of course, Texas is right there at the top. Indiana, like the Midwest at large, but Indiana for sure is a state that you think of. And so it doesn't have the same pub that basketball gets. But when you look at some of the most elite Division I and some of the most elite Division II volleyball players out there, a lot of them come from the Hoosier State.
When it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal, what are the challenges you envision recruiting to West Texas, and how do you plan on convincing players to come out to this region of the country?
Well, for sure. A lot of the same concerns I had, right? Like what? West Texas, right? It feels like a whole other country compared to, the eastern half of the United States. And so, like, can I do, it's funny, when I was interviewing for this job and doing the research, right, one of the websites I come across, I'm pretty sure it's like the city website for Odessa, and like the if I get this wrong, this will look terrible, but it's the caption for Odessa is like where the sky meets the horizon, right? Which they're saying that it means beautiful, and right, like it's unobstructed views, but I'm thinking, man, that sounds barren, and you know what I mean? I'm like, is there anything out there? Like, why is the sky and the horizon, or the horizon and the ground meeting each other? So I think some of the concerns will be that. I've even talked to some players already, both transfers and high school players, from Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth or San Antonio, and even those kids who are Texans are like, yeah, I don't know about West Texas. So some of that would just be selling the area, selling the school, right? I mean, but that comes with any job. I think the biggest part is just selling the vision, right? Do you want, as a high school or a club volleyball player, to go to a lower level Division I? And, hey, you can say you're D1, which is cool, but you may not have a shot to really do anything beyond your conference. Or do you want to come to a UTPB and go fight for a national championship, right? D2 might have a stigma, I don't know, but when you're winning championships and writing new records and turning, like, leaving positive evidence of your passage, nobody's going to ask you or care that it was D2. So those are some of the potential challenges. But if you want to win and have one heck of a time doing it, you'll come to UTPB.
I want to touch real quick on the players that you have here right now. You had the 6-on-6. How'd that look?
It was good, competitive, right? My biggest message so far before we get into like the grind of the season is control the controllables, right? We play a very imperfect sport where if you're an offensive player and you attack for 300, which is only a 30% kill efficiency, you can be an All-American. Well, in the classroom, if you got 30%, or in your all's jobs, if you were only right 30% of the time, right, utter failure. But in volleyball, you're an All-American. So there's going to be so many things in our sport that you can't control. We've got to be mighty good at those controllables, and then we'll worry about some of the bigger picture things from there. So no, it was good. It was high energy. I mean, the girls are excited. They haven't had right, like a structured training system in place since the fall, so they were hungry for that. And everybody wants to make a great first impression. So day one's easy, right? Ask me how day two goes.